I just want to make sure you know how to do basically section 1.4 or packet 1.4. All right, so what we're going to do, number one, is we're going to complete this table, and then we're going to graph the table here, okay? So let's do that. All right, here's the information. We're going to complete the table and graph using this function, and they also give us the domain. So we want to start at the domain. What you have to remember is the domain really just means your x values. And we talked about this last time we met for Zoom. It means your x values, or it also can mean your input. It also means your independent variable. Okay? So because we know our domain, I could actually put the domain in the x row here. So I'm going to just copy all my numbers of the domain into this table for the x row. So 0, 1, 2, 5, 7. Okay, so now I'm almost done with this table. I just have to find the y's. To find the y's, we are going to use our equation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each individual x, plug it into x into my equation, do the math, and it's going to give me my y value, my dependent variable. Okay, so let's start with our first x, which is 0. So y equals 2 times 0 plus 1. Notice I plug in with parentheses. Let's do this math. 2 times 0 is 0 plus 1. And we get 1. So y equals 1. Which means, since I have this in my table, my x and y value, I could actually turn it into a point, 0, 1. So I'm going to plot that point. All right. Now let's go ahead and do the next x value. So let me erase this. Hold on, I gotta let somebody in. Okay, and now I'm gonna plug in the next x value of 1. So I'm gonna plug it in here. So 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 more, we get 3. So we now have 1 with 3, or 1, 3. I can now plot that point. 1, 3 is here. Now we're just going to repeat with the next x value. So my next x value, as you can see on our table, is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. So now we have 2, 5. We can now plot that point. All right, let's plug in 5 now. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 more. That gives me 11. So my next point is 5, 11. Way up there. And last but not least, we're going to plug in 7. Two times 7 is 14. 14 plus 1 is 15. So my next point is 7, 15. Okay, and we are actually done with problem number 1. All right. What I do want to mention here is, notice I can turn the table into ordered pairs or points. Okay. So I took my x and y, turned it into a point, which I have graphed. because you could go from table to points. What you have to understand is if you are given points, or if you're given a graph, you should be able to turn this graph back into a table. All right, that's going to actually be part of your quiz. So can you turn this graph back into a table? And then use the table to maybe write a rule about it, a rule that we talked about last time we met. Okay? So let's do number 2. If we have no questions, let's do number 2. We're going to do the same process, graph it, and go from there. So again, we have our domain. These are our x values, 10, 13, 14, 16, 18. So 10, 13, 14, 16, 18. And then we are going to find our y values by plugging into this function. So we're going to plug in each x into this function. So it's 1/2. The first x I have is 10 minus 5. Okay, so I know some students get scared off because of fractions. So we're multiplying 1/2 times 10. If you have a calculator, because you're not comfortable with fractions, this is actually very easy to compute. All you're going to do is do 1 divided by 2, and it should give you 0.5, and then 0.5 times 10. Okay? So 1 divided by 2, and then what the answer to that, multiply it by 10. All right? So this gives me 5 minus 5, which is now 0. So I have the point 10, 0. Again, guys, think of these problems I'm doing right now as notes, okay? So if you want to copy them down, that's totally up to you. If you want to just watch to learn, that's totally up to you. But these problems are going to be helpful for the quiz that you're going to take later today, which you're going to have to actually upload today, okay? All right, so we did that. Let's plot that point. 10, 0 is over here. And now let's plug in our next x value, which is 13. One half times 13, if you use your calculator, you should get 6.5. Or 6.5 minus 5. If you do this computation right, you get 1.5 or 1.5. So my next point is 13, 1.5. Let's plot that bad boy. 13 and 1.5, so we're going to go to 13 and up 1.5, which is right halfway here. Okay. Next value that we're going to plug in is 14. So hopefully you're getting the idea here how simple this is, as long as you do the math correctly. Sorry, we're plugging in 14. Half of 14, or 14 times 1/2 is 7. 7 minus 5, you get 2. So now we have 14, 2. Plot that point, and then we continue. Let's plug in 16 now. 1/2 times 16 is 8. 8 minus 5, that gives me 3. So we have 16, 3. Cool. And last but not least, we're going to plug in 18. One half times 18, that gives me 9. 9 minus 5, that gives me 4. So we have 18, 4. I forgot to write this ordered pair. So 18, 4 is here. And we are done. Okay? And that's as simple as it gets. This is basically the skills you need from Im3 to complete these tables. Just be careful with negatives. Be careful when you compute the math and order of operations, okay? This stuff is super easy. I know you love it. You love doing it. You just can't wait to do more problems. I can see it in your, well, actually I can't see your face, but you get the idea. Okay, so think of those as notes. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna switch the page. I'm gonna give you about a minute if you're still looking this over, if you wanna take a quick screenshot of it. This will be in the recording for the Zoom today, so if you wanna, before you take the quiz, go over this again in the Zoom recording. The quiz is due tomorrow, but I recommend that you turn it in today. So saying that, here's the quiz, okay? I'll give you about 15 more seconds. Okay, here's your Zoom quiz. You have 2 problems. Problem number 3 is essentially what we just did, so hopefully this is not too difficult for you. So on a piece of paper or however you've been turning in your assignments, fill in the table, give me a graph of the table, okay? Problem number 4 is slightly different, okay? So let me remind you of something. So problem number 4, you are given points. And I had mentioned earlier, you should be able to take these points and turn them into a table like this. Okay? Once you do that, here's your domain. Write down your range. Hopefully you remember what those 2 mean. And then you're going to write a rule. So if you remember our last Zoom meeting, here's the hint for you. Our rule always starts with y equals, and then you put a x down. And then you have to tell me if you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing in order to get the table that you got from here. Okay? If you are confused on what the heck is he talking about a rule, you should probably go look back at our recordings from the Zoom on Tuesday. Okay? So this is your quiz. Those are the hints I'm going to give you. Other than that, I can't help you unless it's like a question where I can give you a hint on what to do. Okay? But these are the 2 problems you are turning into today's upload. You'll see at the bottom of Thursday, I mentioned it earlier, it says Zoom quiz. Today's Zoom quiz. Okay, so these are the 2 problems you're going to upload there. Okay, so go ahead and do that. If you finish this early, you go ahead and start the calendar problems. There's a lot of you that are missing a lot of work. So start getting that stuff done. You'll have the rest of the period to do that. And I will give you the access code today. Let's see, we're at period 2. The access code, I'll give it to you at 10:45. Okay, so let me write that in. So if you want to leave Zoom, you can to watch videos or whatever. But access code or your check-in code okay, is going to be at 10:45. All right, guys, the rest of the time is yours. I'm going to leave this screen up of the quiz for about another 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. And then I'm going to help some people out if they have questions on homework, okay? So basically you got 10, 15 minutes to copy this down before this screen goes away. Good luck. Do not hesitate to ask any questions. The rest of the period is yours. Get your job done. Get your work done. Get your chicken. All right, good luck, guys. Okay, so number 11 is very similar to the problems I showed you earlier today. We're going to create our table. And you have to recall that our domain is really our x's. So I'm going to draw in a table really quick. Okay, so we'll call this our x, our y. This is 0, 2, 4, 6 for our x values. And to find the y values, we're going to just plug in this into this. This looks a little confusing, but it's not too bad, okay? If you take it little by little. So let's find our y values. So let's plug in. We have 0.5. Instead of x, we're plugging in our first x value, which is 0, plus 1, and then we're going to divide that by 2. Okay, so let's do this math. 0.5 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. So all the top turns into 1. The bottom still is 2. So our final answer is actually 1/2, or if you prefer decimals, 0.5. I prefer fractions, so I'm going to leave it as 1/2. Okay, now we're going to repeat this process. So we're now going to plug in 2 for x. If you use your calculator, 0.5 times 2, this actually turns into 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, so we end up with 2 over 2. 2 divided by 2 is actually 1. All right, so we're done with that x. Let's plug in 4. .5 times 4 is 2, so this turns into 2. 2 plus 1 is 3, so we end up with 3 over 2. Okay, and you just leave it as a fraction. You can reduce that if you want, but for now, just leave it as 3 over 2. Decimal form, 3 over 2 is really 1.5. Okay, so if you want to do decimal form, just 3 divided by 2 in your calculator, you should get 1.5. All right, and then the last number we got to plug in is 6. .5 times 6, that gives me 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Okay, and we completed the table. All right, so the next thing we have to do is identifying the range of the function. Remember, the range is just your y values. So all these y values, I'm just going to list. 1/2, 1, 3 over 2, 2. And there's my range. Okay, hopefully that helps.